71 kilometers of steel, gleaming, silent, frozen in the heat. This was supposed to be a lifeline, a railway that could cut hours off travel, link bustling economic hubs, and breathe life into small towns. Jobs, trade, growth, everything was riding on these tracks. But now, nothing moves. Not a train, not a worker, not a single cargo container. And it's not because engineers failed. It's not because money ran dry. The blueprints were perfect. The plans were ready. No. This project stands still because the world's superpowers turned it into a battlefield. Washington, Tokyo, Beijing, decisions made thousands of miles away are keeping commuters stuck in traffic, farmers waiting for buyers, and small businesses hoping for customers who will never come. Imagine a city where every day feels paused, where a highway jam doesn't just waste hours, it steals livelihoods. Where a family that should be seeing a brighter future instead watches cranes idle and dirt piles untouched. This is the story of the Sububi-Clark Railway, a project worth $800 million, a promise of speed, efficiency, and progress, now caught in limbo. And to understand why this railway didn't just stop, we need to ask a question that goes far beyond steel and tracks. How did a line meant to unite cities and fuel growth become a pawn in a global chess game? It sounds impossible. A railway meant to speed up trade, create jobs, and modernize an entire region, frozen before it even moved a single train. How did this happen? Infrastructure is never just steel and concrete. Every bridge, every track, every station carries a hidden weight. Politics. Deals are signed, loans approved, contractors hired, but a shift in leadership can flip progress into gridlock. In the Philippines, this is exactly what happened. One president leans toward Beijing, the next leans toward Washington and Tokyo. Suddenly, trust is fragile, partnerships shift, and money that was promised evaporates. What looks like a local project, a simple railway, suddenly becomes a stage where superpowers clash. Every decision on land, financing, and construction is now intertwined with diplomacy, strategy, and influence far beyond Philippine borders. And the most striking part? The casualties aren't just numbers in a spreadsheet. They are commuters stuck in traffic, families waiting for new homes, and farmers who can't get their goods to market. This isn't just a railway. It's a mirror showing how geopolitics can reach deep into daily life. Rewind to 2021. President Rodrigo Duterte unveiled the Luzon Economic Corridor, a bold vision to modernize the Philippines' transport backbone. Deals were inked with Chinese state-owned companies. Railways, ports, and economic zones promised to transform the country. Momentum was building. Then, leadership changed. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. assumed the presidency, and with him came a different perspective. Where Duterte leaned toward Beijing, Marcos leaned back toward Washington and Tokyo. It wasn't just a political preference, it was a signal to the world. At the same time, tensions in the South China Sea escalated. Philippine and Chinese ships clashed near contested reefs. Water cannons were fired. Patrols collided. Suddenly, what had been routine cooperation turned tense, even hostile. For Chinese financiers, the shift was a red flag. Loans that would have been standard were frozen. Agreements that seemed secure evaporated overnight. A railway meant to unite the Philippines was now caught between superpowers. The ground was shifting beneath the country's feet, and the clock was ticking. The Luzon Economic Corridor was more than a plan. It was a promise. 3 flagship railways were set to reshape how Filipinos moved, worked, and traded. First, the Sububi-Clark Railway, 71 kilometers, linking Sububi Freeport and Clark Freeport. $800 million to slash cargo transport times, connecting ports to airports, speeding exports, and cutting logistics costs. Second, the PNR South Long Haul Line, a 380-kilometer route from Metro Manila to Biol. What once took 12 hours by train would be cut to just 4. overnight journeys transformed into same-day commutes. Third, the Mindanao Railway, over 1,500 kilometers planned, beginning with a 102-kilometer stretch from Tagum to Digos. For the country's second-largest island, this meant unlocking new labor markets, connecting farmers to buyers, and opening long-stalled trade corridors. Together, these projects promised jobs during construction, thriving small businesses around stations, less traffic congestion, and a rewired economy. For millions, it wasn't just transport, it was a chance at faster growth, better lives, and a future unblocked by inefficiency. But if China was the partner making all of this possible, why did the pipeline suddenly freeze? If you were building a railway in the 2020s, China looked unbeatable. Its network stretches over 159,000 kilometers, enough track to circle the Earth almost 4 times. Over 45,000 kilometers are high-speed lines, more than the rest of the world combined. In 2023 alone, China's high-speed trains carried 3.68 billion passengers, more than the population of the entire planet. On peak days, 20 million travelers move through its system in just 24 hours. It's not just volume. China's trains are fast, 300 to 350 kilometers per hour, with maglev research pushing speeds near 600 kilometers per hour. But what made China irresistible to Manila wasn't only speed. It offered a full package: financing, construction crews, technology transfer, and project management, all bundled together. For a government with limited cash and urgent needs, that meant less bureaucracy, faster groundbreaking, and a turnkey solution. On paper, China wasn't just an option, it was the option. But even the fastest trains can't outrun geopolitics. When diplomacy falters, paper blueprints and funding approvals can vanish overnight. Then the storm hit. By mid-2022, tensions between Manila and Beijing were rising. Philippine Coast Guard vessels pushed into contested waters near reefs in the South China Sea. Water cannons blasted, patrols collided, and the seas became a daily stage for confrontation. At the same time, President Marcos Jr. began revisiting the railway deals his predecessor signed. Loan terms were questioned, repayment conditions scrutinized. What had been routine approvals now looked like negotiation battles. For China, this was a warning. A partner leaning toward Washington, ships clashing at sea, and now financial terms being renegotiated. Trust evaporated. The response was swift and brutal. No new loans, no green light for the Sububi-Clark Railway, no funding for the South Line. Plans froze. Engineering teams told to wait. Contractors dismissed. Crews demobilized. The grand vision stalled before a single track was laid. And while the steel lay untouched, the people who had staked their lives and livelihoods on these projects felt the first real impact. Behind the frozen tracks are real lives. Families along the planned right-of-way had already started preparing for relocation. Some packed, some even moved, expecting compensation and new homes. Then the loans dried up and everything stopped. Contractors and engineers who had mobilized, surveying land, planning tunnels, and scoping bridges, were suddenly told to wait. Small businesses that had stocked up to supply materials and feed workers faced losses they hadn't anticipated. The Sububi-Clark Railway, the $800 million flagship project, became the clearest symbol of this freeze. Meant to link economic hubs, it existed mostly on paper. For the workers who expected steady paychecks, it was like watching a train that never arrived. And for the towns and communities that pinned their hopes on new stations, faster trade, and better access to markets, the pause felt like betrayal. Blueprints don't feed families. Idle cranes don't pay salaries. With China's funding off the table, the Marcos government had to look elsewhere, and fast. That's when the United States and Japan entered the story. With China's financing frozen, the Philippines faced a choice: wait and watch projects stall, or pivot to new partners. In April 2024, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. made a bold move. He approached the United States and Japan, proposing they step in to rescue the stalled Subic-Clark Railway and other key projects. A historic trilateral summit followed. Marcos, U.S. President Donald Trump, and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida sat across the table, discussing not just rails and stations, but the future direction of Philippine growth. Within a month, they formalized the Luzon Economic Corridor Steering Committee, tasked with reviving the railways, modernizing ports, and accelerating critical infrastructure investments. This wasn't just a construction deal, it was a political pivot. Choosing Washington and Tokyo signaled a shift in alliances, a deliberate balancing act in the face of Beijing's influence. For the Philippines, rails and ports were no longer just logistics. They had become symbols of foreign policy, leverage, and the nation's strategic choices. But could the United States and Japan actually deliver? History suggests the answer isn't simple. On paper, U.S. and Japanese involvement looked ideal. Two advanced economies, deep pockets, and strong diplomatic ties. But reality is never that simple. Japan, for example, has a mixed track record. Its flagship high-speed rail between Mumbai and Ahmedabad, over 500 kilometers, has progressed painfully slowly since 2017. Vietnam's proposed Hanoi-Ho Chi Minh City line, backed by Japan, has lingered on paper for nearly 2 decades. Even with money and expertise, land acquisition, bureaucratic hurdles, and local resistance can grind progress to a halt. The United States faces its own challenges. Once a global rail leader, America now struggles with aging infrastructure. In 2023 alone, over 13,000 train delays were recorded nationwide, half of them lasting more than 30 minutes. And the United States still lacks a true high-speed rail system connecting major cities. For the Philippines, the question is stark. If Japan can't deliver abroad quickly, and the United States can't fix its own rail system, how can either guarantee a brand new railway network in a country of mountains, islands, and seismic activity? And even if the money and political will exist, engineering and human challenges threaten to derail progress at every turn. Building railways in the Philippines is no simple task. The country is an archipelago of over 7,000 islands, stitched together by mountains, rivers, and seismic fault lines. Every kilometer of track demands tunnels, viaducts, and bridges, each a technical puzzle that adds cost and complexity. Then there's the issue of standards. China, Japan, and the United States all use different rail gauges, signaling systems, and train designs. Shifting a project midstream means engineers face compatibility nightmares. Tracks surveyed for Chinese trains might not fit Japanese or American rolling stock. Signaling and control systems may need a total redesign. Land acquisition adds another layer of difficulty. Families and communities have already been told to move once. Starting over risks delays, disputes, and public frustration. Negotiating compensation, relocating homes, and coordinating with local governments can take years. Even seasoned construction teams would struggle. The terrain is tough, the standards don't match, and the human element, residents, workers, and local businesses, cannot be ignored. Despite these obstacles, the Philippines cannot afford to let these projects fail. The economic stakes are enormous. Every single day, the Philippines loses billions to traffic congestion. In Metro Manila alone, the Asian Development Bank estimates up to $70 million vanish daily in wasted productivity. Workers stuck in jams, deliveries delayed, businesses bleeding efficiency. Railways aren't just about convenience, they're honestly a lifeline. The Sububi-Clark line could cut cargo transport time from port to airport by more than half, giving exporters and importers a reliable backbone. The South Long Haul Railway could link Luzon's breadbasket to Manila in a single day, lowering food prices, opening markets, and connecting farmers directly to buyers. The ripple effect is just enormous. Every kilometer of railway built creates jobs, not just in construction, but in maintenance, operations, tourism, and surrounding businesses. Economists project that a completed Luzon rail network could boost GDP by 1 to 1.5% annually. For millions still living below the poverty line, that's millions lifted toward the middle class. Without modern railways, the Philippines risks choking on its own growth. With them, it could become Southeast Asia's next logistics hub, connecting oceans, markets, and opportunity. But these tracks aren't just economic tools. They're geopolitical symbols, too. In the Philippines, railways carry more than cargo, they carry messages. Choosing China signals a willingness to prioritize rapid development, even if it means navigating territorial disputes in the South China Sea. Beijing tightens its economic grip, showing that even America's closest allies can be swayed by financial muscle. Turning fully to the United States and Japan sends a different signal. It aligns Manila with security allies, strengthens ties with advanced economies, and positions the Philippines as part of Washington's Indo-Pacific strategy. But it also risks retaliation from Beijing's stalled investments, trade restrictions, or frozen partnerships. For President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., every decision is a tightrope walk. Lean too far toward China, and Washington could freeze military or economic support. Lean too far toward Washington and Tokyo, and Beijing might respond aggressively. Infrastructure now doubles as diplomacy. Every bridge, every track, every station is a choice about sovereignty, influence, and strategy. The rails themselves become the country's foreign policy, shaping the Philippines' economic and political trajectory for the next decade. With stakes this high, three futures now hang in the balance. The Sububi-Clark Railway remains frozen. Surveys are done, land is cleared, yet not a single track has been laid. The South Long-Haul Line, once set to cut travel from 12 hours to 4, also hangs in uncertainty. Only the North-South Commuter Railway, backed by Japan and the Asian Development Bank, is making visible progress. Three futures now lie ahead. Best case, the United States and Japan step in fully, funding flows, construction begins, and Sububi-Clark finally becomes a reality. Middle case, projects crawl forward, plagued by delays, cost overruns, and bureaucratic hurdles. Worst case, politics derail momentum entirely, and another decade is lost. Every delay has a human cost. Commuters stuck in traffic, farmers unable to move goods, small businesses waiting for the economic spark that railways could provide. The rails built today won't just carry passengers, they'll carry the nation's destiny. So, here's the question for you. Who should build the Philippines' railways? Beijing, Tokyo, Washington, or a careful balance of all three? Comment below. And don't forget to subscribe for future deep dives into the forces shaping our world.